Welcome to Rank Kingdom Sports, and we are here with our NFL Week 15 predictions. Last week I went 10-4, a very good week. And this week I am officially declaring it COVID week for Week 15 because it feels like everybody and every team just feels like they're coming down with COVID. There's been, 75 different people at least, including coaches, players, staff that have all come down with it. So yeah, Week 15 is officially COVID week. So let's just jump right into these picks. First we have on Thursday Night Football, we have the Chiefs and the Chargers. I am picking the Chiefs in this one. Now, there are a lot of injuries in this game. You have Chris Jones out, Willie Gay out, and Rashawn Slater for the Chargers out in this game. So I think the injuries kind of even out in a way, but it may hinder that Chargers offensive line just a tad. And you also have Derwin James and Austin Eckler questionable in this game for the Chargers. But I feel like it's basically going to be another Chiefs home game because the Chargers fans, they don't really have fans. It just feels like everybody who plays on the road at SoFi against the Chargers, it's basically another home game. But last week, the Chiefs, they looked really good against the Raiders, absolutely dominated, forced 5 turnovers, scored 48 points, offense, defense, everything was clicking, looked really, really good. You have Herbert, dominating the Giants, the defense showing up, looking a little bit better, but I still think their defense is a big question mark for the Chargers team as a whole. But Herbert, the offense looked really, really good. Herbert was making some unbelievable throws, some really great throws, but I think the Chiefs will defeat the Chargers in probably what could be a shootout in a really, really close game. Next, we have the Raiders and the Browns. I'm picking the Browns, even though they are hindered completely with a whole bunch of COVID issues. You have Baker, Jarvis, and Austin Hooper all dealing with COVID right now, including their Coach Stefanski. But literally everyone has it, and like half their team has it. It feels like their offensive line as well. But the Raiders, if we're looking at them, like I said, they got destroyed by the Chiefs. They gave up 41 points, gave the ball away 5 times, looked absolutely terrible in that game. The only one that looked good was Hunter Renfrow, and even he was fumbling the ball away. The Raiders did not look good last week. The Browns' defense last week looked really good, dominating. Myles Garrett making a case for Defensive Player of the Year in that game, having 4 sacks and forcing 2 fumbles. He looked very good. The Browns' offense, not really looking too good last week, especially in the second half. Didn't score in the second half, but their defense did come up clutch and ended the game for them. And I think even with all the COVID issues that the Browns are dealing with, I still think they're a better team. I think their defense is just so much better than the Raiders. And so I have the Browns winning this. Next, we have the Patriots and the Colts. This game is going to be a lot of fun, in my opinion. The Patriots coming off a really good win against the Bills on Monday Night Football, running the ball 46 times. Mac Jones only throwing 3 times. The defense looked absolutely dominant, looked really, really good in that game. Honestly, in power rankings, I think I have them 5, but it just as a whole, they were a very solid team. They're going to be dangerous in the playoffs. The Patriots got right just at the right time. They've had a very good season as a whole. Mac Jones might win Offensive Rookie of the Year. You have the Colts, who I think are much better than their record. Carson Wentz is definitely having a really good season. Leaving Philadelphia was great. Their last game against the Texans shut them out, I believe. It was 31-0. Jonathan Taylor is having a massive season rushing the ball. Their offense, I think, has looked really good. I think this game is going to be tight. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And I have the Patriots barely winning, even though this is a game that feels like a must-win for the Colts, definitely. Next, we have the Titans and the Steelers. This game I feel like was very, very hard to pick. I am picking the Titans to win this game. The Titans are winning despite all their injuries, which is very impressive. Now, I don't think Ryan Tannehill is particularly playing that well, but they are missing their best receivers, and Derrick Henry is out, 2 obviously very key pieces to that Titans team. They defeated the Jags last week 20-0. Their defense forced 4 interceptions. Their defense, honestly, I think is their life of this team right now, and they're holding up really, really well. The Steelers last week, they tried to come back against the Vikings. Their offensive line, their running defense, Chase Claypool, all those issues were terrible against the Vikings last week. Big Ben is not the problem in Pittsburgh, at least recently. Played very good against the Vikings. I think he was making some great throws, looking really, really good. Their run defense was terrible, but I am going to pick the Titans to win this game, and I think what might be could be a very ugly game, but I think the Titans will pull out the victory. Next, we have the Panthers and the Bills. I'm going with the Bills in this one. I think it's time for the Bills to get right. They are 7-6. I think talent-wise, they're much better than their record, but these last 2 weeks, they haven't looked good against the Patriots. Looked terrible. They couldn't stop the run. They looked bad last week against the Buccaneers. They didn't run the ball 1 time in the first half with a running back, which looks it's a bad look. Just it kind of got exposed that they don't have a run game, and that Josh Allen is their entire run game, basically. But the Panthers, they don't know what they're doing with their quarterbacks. Matt Rule, I think, is a really bad head coach. He fired Joe Brady. Don't understand that. They don't trust Cam Newton because they keep benching him. They keep bringing in PJ Walker, but then they'll bench Cam Newton again. So I don't like anything about the Panthers. Now, their defense is fairly solid, but I think the Bills are going to be very hungry against a lesser opponent, and I think the Bills come out with this victory. Next, we have the Washington football team and the Eagles, two teams coming in with the same record, both sitting at 6-7 right now. I think the Eagles will win this game. Washington played pretty bad against the Cowboys, I must say. I mean, they were able to keep the Cowboys' offense in check for most of the game, trying to make the game close towards the end with a pick six. But just as a whole, I don't think Washington is honestly a very good football team. They were hot there for a little bit, but they looked pretty bad against the Cowboys. Taylor Heineke makes some great throws, but I don't think he's a very good quarterback, makes a lot of mistakes, and doesn't look good at a lot of times. The Eagles, they're coming off a bye and a really good win against the Jets last time, albeit against the Jets with Gardner Minshew starting. And I think either if it is Gardner Minshew or Jalen Hurts starting, I think the Eagles will pull out the victory in this game. I think they're a better team. They've showed more promise, in my opinion, than the Washington football team has. And if either one of these two teams were to make the playoffs, I think I would pick the Eagles, even though the NFC is very top heavy, but the teams that are below them are absolutely terrible. Next, we have the Texans and the Jags. I'm picking the Texans, but I really don't want to discuss this game other than the fact that I think Urban Meyer is a complete loser. Trevor Lawrence stinks. The Jags are just a dysfunction franchise. Urban Meyer, from his coaching hires to bringing in Tim Tebow, as much as I like Tim Tebow, that was not a good idea. Just everything he's done this season, his team is calling him out. He's kicking players. You know, obviously that thing he did in the bar with that woman, it's just like nothing is good about this franchise. They stink. Everybody hates Urban Meyer. I don't know why he's there. And honestly, Davis Mills has been outplaying Trevor Lawrence this year, and that's why I'm going with the Texans. Next, we have the Cowboys and the Giants. The Cowboys offense did not look particularly well against Washington's. They haven't looked fairly good at all. The Saints game, the Raiders game, and last week did not look particularly well. I am picking the Cowboys to win this game, but I think Dak needs to get back on track, look a little bit better than what he is if he wants to chance, because he doesn't want this division to slip, but I don't think at this point the division's going to slip, especially with their win against Washington last week. But they are in that stretch where they're playing divisional opponents. He did have that terrible interception that let Washington stay in the game, but you also have that defense, which is playing great. Micah Parsons, 2 sacks, a forced fumble. I think he could be Defensive Rookie of the Year. Obviously, he's making a case for Defensive Player of the Year. So I think the Cowboys just as a whole are so much better than the Giants. The Giants stink. There's nothing nice to say about them. I think they're dealing with COVID issues of their own, and so I'm going with the Cowboys. Next, we have the Cardinals and the Lions. I'm picking the Cardinals, who can clinch a playoff spot with this game, with a victory in this game, and I'm picking them to win. They did come off a tough loss against the Rams. Murray had some very bad throws. Also made some plays, but also some bad throws. James Conner solidified himself as a really good running back, I think, last week. You know, he was out muscling Aaron Donald at some point. So I think he's made a case to being a really good running back. You know, getting out of Pittsburgh may have been a really good thing for him. But they do have DeAndre Hopkins, who is out at least for the rest of the regular season, which might be a hit for them. But at the same time, they do have a huge pool of talent just sitting there waiting to play, even if he doesn't play. So I think they'll be all right. The Lions stink, got blown out by the Broncos. They're not a good football team. As much as I really am rooting for Dan Campbell to see how happy Jared Goff was to get that first victory, they stink, and I have the Cardinals winning. Next, we have the Jets and the Dolphins. There's nothing nice to say about the Jets. They stink. Their head coach is terrible. Zach Wilson is terrible. There's nothing good to say about them whatsoever. Now, the Dolphins, on the other hand, I am a full-on believer in Tua, and everybody can hate me if they want. I'm a full-on believer in Tua right now. The Dolphins have been hot. 5-game winning streak. Coming off a bye. Tua, Jalen Waddle becoming a great connection. Their defense has been playing much better than they did to start the season. It all started with that Ravens game where they just blitzed Lamar Jackson to death, and they have looked good ever since then. They're coming off a bye. They're healthy. They're ready to go. They might sneak into the playoffs, and they have to win this game, obviously, but their schedule after this game is still favorable in them. They could finish this season 9-8, and I have the Dolphins beating the Jets. Next, we have the Bengals and the Broncos, two teams that I really don't have a gauge on. I think I'm picking the Bengals to win this game, and for the Bengals, they did have a tough loss against the 49ers. They are in the NFC. They are in the AFC North, which absolutely nobody wants to win right now, so that's a good thing for them. It's a very tough division. Now, these teams are pretty bad. The Ravens are beat up. The Bengals have been very inconsistent. You have the Browns, who are really injured and aren't playing up to their potential. You have the Steelers, who are just a team that is a franchise that's just kind of going down. So they have a chance to win their division. I really think they do, but they're beating themselves too many times. They lost tough, and I thought Joe Burrow was really good. The Broncos, they blew out the Lions, but I think I don't know what to make of them because I don't like their quarterback. As much as I like Teddy Bridgewater, as much as I think that he's a really nice guy, I don't like the Broncos quarterback. I like everything else about their team. Their running game is absolutely killer, but I am going to go with the Bengals. And probably is going to be a close game, and I'm picking them because I think Joe Burrow is just a much better quarterback than Teddy Bridgewater. Next, we have the Falcons and the 49ers. Both of these teams, I have no idea what to make of them. At times, they both look good. At times, they both look bad. The 49ers started off this season really bad. The Falcons, just as a whole, has been up and down. They beat the bad teams, lose to the good teams, so they're very mediocre. 49ers, I really do think they are better than their record shows, but they just don't play up to it. Now, they did win last week against the Bengals in overtime. George Kittle having a massive game. Brandon Ayuk, there was rumors that he was in the doghouse early on the season. Definitely seems to be out of it. He's stepping up, making plays, looking really, really good as of late. So I think the 49ers win this game. I think Jimmy G gets too much hate than what he deserves, but I think the 49ers will pull out a victory in this game. Next, we have the Seahawks and the Rams. I'm picking the Rams to do this. Now, the Seahawks did look better last week, albeit against a really bad Texas team. That Russ to Tyler Lockett connection looked like it was back to being on point. And the Rams, they finally got their big win of the season against the Cardinals after everybody was doubting them. But they are going to there's a chance they could be missing OBJ, Jalen Ramsey, and Darrell Henderson on this game with all the COVID issues. But at the same time, I still think the Rams are too talented of a team. Their defense especially stepped up last week, forcing 2 really good key interceptions to help them win that game. And I think the Rams will defeat the Seahawks. Next, we had the Packers and the Ravens. I'm going with the Packers, and I don't even think this game is close. The Packers dominated the Bears, especially in that second half. I know it was close in the first half, but I think that just as a whole, I think the Packers played a much better game throughout that game. And these 2 teams are very injured. I just think the Packers are handling their injuries much better than the Ravens are, and I don't think Lamar Jackson, even if healthy, is a very good quarterback right now. He may not be a very good quarterback in general, but the Packers can clinch a playoff spot, clinch their division with this win. And I think just because of how beat up the Ravens are, Lamar Jackson is playing, but he's beat up. I think the Packers, Aaron Rodgers is beat up too, and he's not practicing, and he's still playing great. So I got to go with the Packers in this. They're just a much better team right now. Injuries aside, I think the Packers would have won this game either way. Next, we have Sunday Night Football between the Buccaneers and the Saints. Now, I am going with the Buccaneers in this game, but for some reason, the Saints love to give the Buccaneers troubles in the regular season. Last year, they did it earlier on this season. They did it, albeit that with Jameis Winston, but at the same time, I think they do give him troubles. There's something about that defense and Tom Brady that do not get along. They do not mesh well. The Saints do have a defensive advantage against that Buccaneers offense, it feels like, but I feel like this is the time where that kind of ends. The Bucs were able to hold on in the second half against the Bills team, coming out with a victory after a walk-off touchdown. The Saints absolutely destroyed the Jets. The Jets stink. As I mentioned, the Jets are a really bad football team. Now the Saints, they need a quarterback desperately. They need wide receivers. They do have Alvin Kamara, who is going to get a huge workload, I can imagine, in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if he touches the ball 40, 45 times in this game. Like, that's how much of a workload he might get in this game. But I think the Bucs' regular season struggles against the Saints is going to come to an end here. I don't see that continuing. I think Tom Brady's playing at an MVP level. I think he's playing great. I think the Bucs are playing great. Now, albeit that second half against the Bills wasn't pretty, but they clinched the NFC South with this victory, and so I am going to go with the Buccaneers to finally defeat their kryptonite in the regular season and beat the Saints. And finally, on Monday Night Football, we have the Vikings and the Bears. I'm going with the Vikings in this, but again, it's every single. I said this when the Vikings played the Lions. It just feels like there's always a chance for the Vikings to blow it and lose. It feels like it every time. Every week it feels like, oh, this is the week where the Vikings are going to lose. Because they easily could have lost against the Steelers if Chase Claypool wasn't an idiot. That second half was absolutely terrible that the Vikings had. They could have won that game, but they did win that game, but they easily could have lost it. I didn't think Kirk Cousins played well. Now, Dalvin Cook is absolutely amazing. He, even on an injured shoulder, he had 10-mile wide holes to just run through against that Steelers. So that's a huge credit to that offensive line of the Vikings, which they have a very good offensive line. If you see those holes, very good offensive line. But the Bears, they played very good in the first half against the Packers. Justin Fields had a very good first half. Their special teams definitely helped them stay in that game. Fields, I don't think necessarily did that much. He just made the throws and he got it in the playmakers' hands and they made the plays. Looked really good doing it. But again, I think this game is going to be close. It's going to come down to the wire because what do we expect from the Vikings? They can't close out a game. They don't know how to close out a game. This is a Mike Zimmer issue. Kirk Cousins made some terrible plays in that game against the Steelers. It would not be surprised me if the Vikings choke this and lose, but I got to go with the Vikings. I got to be smart here. Got to pick them, even though I think this game might be very close. Those are my NFL Week 15 predictions. Give me your thoughts down below and give me your predictions, and I will see you in the next one.